We are less than 2 weeks away from the Huskers kickoff versus UTEP in Lincoln. If you've watched the channel for any amount of time, you've probably noticed that Gary loves pouring cold water on everything. In the end, I think you're right more than you're wrong to do that, Gary, but that's not your attitude about the wide receivers. I've never heard you this gleeful. In fact, the other day you said the words Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase.
And Justin Jefferson.
Could you explain?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a carbon copy. I think the receiving core combined with Raiola, just from what we're seeing, from what you're hearing, I think across the board, you have more than enough guys. And by more than enough, I mean more than just your starting 2 or 3 receivers that do a lot of different things. You've got deep threats. You've got guys that can make people miss, like kind of what Rule was talking about he wants to see from the running backs. You have a handful of receivers that can do that. You've got big physical receivers that are going to be mismatch problems. You've got experience with some of the seniors they brought in on top of, guys like Bullock and things like that are still here that you can rely on when it's situational, short down and distance, and they'll be able to get to the first down marker instead of if you're in a 3rd and 7 and the route that's called for them is a 5-yard route and they're just so programmed. You've got guys that know better. Okay, there's a 5-yard out, but I need to make it a 7-yard out to get the first down. Every area you can think of, in my opinion, looking through these guys, and some of them it is hinging on newer guys, but I just think you have so many options and a different skill set across the board in that room that you can just create nightmares matchup wise from week to week, no matter who the defense is you're playing, no matter what their strong points or weak points are, and package that with, I think another deep room is the tight end room. I think the passing game, not trying to be hyperbolic with the whole LSU comparison, but I mean, that team kind of went from nothing to all of a sudden they had a legit quarterback and some really good receivers. And when you paired them together, it showed. And I think probably being realistic, probably not that level. I'm not saying that, but I mean, I think it's going to be, for lack of a better term, a pleasant surprise a few weeks in. I think we're going to see an offensive passing attack that we've never really seen before, at least obviously not in recent years.
My instincts are to pump the brakes. That one of us here needs to relax because Raiola is a freshman and our offensive line has been such an issue. But I agree with what you said about Raiola being able to help the offensive line through its growth by being able to extend the play. I mean, we were talking about it earlier, and you were saying how whenever the pass is shut down on a play, Raiola is going to keep the option of passing alive. And we've got so much speed, dangerous speed. If he hits someone late on a play that's broken down, these are the type of guys that can and will house those plays to the end zone.
When you look at the size and speed, some guys have both. Malachi is a good example. He's a tall, big target that has really high end speed. Obviously, Lloyd's a little smaller, but he seems to be able to blow the top off a little easier. Ja'Cory Barney coming in, we saw flashes of what he can do in the spring game. I think he's going to be more of a Wan'Dale Robinson type with the shiftiness, and combine that with the speed is just like as a playmaker. Just get him in the middle of the field in between zones, or if an outside linebacker, depending on what sets they're in, has to come out and try to guard him, good luck. And then now you've got Nayer and Banks coming in. Banks seems to be more of a physical possession receiver. Nayer seems to be kind of a hybrid with all those different things. You've still got Bullock. We haven't even talked about Carter Nelson and his freakish athleticism added with his size to where he's going to be too big and too strong for a lot of corners and some safeties to deal with. He's going to be too athletic for a lot of linebackers. It's just the matchups, looking at it from the defensive standpoint of opponents, that's a lot, man. That's not just don't let Trey Palmer blow the top off the defense. You know what I mean? That's like, you've got a lot of guys that can blow the top off the defense. You got a lot of guys that can get open in the middle of the field. And you got a lot of guys that are big physical targets that are going to be tough to defend if you can't get under them. And, and you get under them, they still have the speed and the height to go over. So I just think that room is so deep and has so much talent that now that we finally have a passing quarterback and that caliber of a passing quarterback, that dedicated to the playbook and understanding things, I've felt that we've had really good receiving rooms in the past, but I feel like this is kind of a perfect combination. To your point, there is a big part of me as I say all this stuff thinking there's a lot of young guys on this team that haven't proven much yet, so that everything I'm saying come back to bite me in the ass. But I mean, I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about being wrong or looking dumb. It's just honestly gut feeling from watching, the guys that are coming back that were there last year, seeing what Rayola's been doing, the guys that we added and the speed and just the different things that we've looked at going over highlights of these guys. I think that there's anybody who has really high hopes for the passing game this season, I think is very legit. I don't think it's a lot of pipe dreams or like reaching or just because they're in Husker jerseys, blowing things out of proportion like people do a lot every year. But I think it's a really high possibility that the receivers as a whole look really, really good by the end of the year.
And like you said, there's so many of them. I mean, I think a lot of them are going to have to just accept a red shirt and be okay with that. And that is great for the program to have those guys progressing and not burning eligibility. Having a wide receiver room like this is one of the great benefits of having such a highly regarded quarterback. I'm going to be really interested to see who Raiola develops that super close connection with. Whether it's a tight end, maybe it's Fidone, maybe it's Malachi. Personally, I'm rooting for Malachi. I'm just excited to see who's it going to be that he trusts the most. Who's going to be his best friend out there. I think that both of us are expecting a lot from Isaiah Neyor. If you guys haven't seen his tape, go check it out from Wyoming. He really only caught like one ball at Texas. Ja'Cory Burney Jr., big, super athletic, shifty. He's probably going to play even as a freshman. Of course, you've got Alex Bullock out there. Don't want to disrespect.
You got IGC coming back, who has some experience, obviously, in the system. That's what I mean with you have so much. You have youth that, in my opinion, has more athletic talent. But you have these guys that, if you need to go veteran heavy, you can go Banks, Neyor, Bullock, IGC, guys like that. If you want to get more explosive and creative, especially against like a UTEP rollout, Barney, Malachi, Lloyd, whatever, Demetrius Bell, whoever, guys that you want to see how explosive this team can look, you have that option. And then kind of back to your point about Raiola getting comfortable or who he develops these connections with, I think that kind of goes back to my point of we'll see what he's really made of when the bullets are flying. So if he can stay poised, extend the play, but if he does start getting a little antsy and trying to get the ball out quicker, I think that's where you're going to be, like, to your point, Fidone, Borkature, Carter Nelson, Malachi, the bigger receivers, maybe Banks. I could see him being more of a slant and short in, short out type receiver that could be a quick option for him, or even, tossing to some of them backs out of the backfield. But that's where my confidence in saying something that honestly, it does sound stupid that they're going to be that good comes from, is because there's just so many options. Like if I sat here and looked at like, what could you add? Like when we did the running back video, when you played that clip of what Rule said about what he wants, that's what I said. Yeah, that'd be cool, but we don't have that guy. I just don't think we have that explosive guy in the running back room. You could look at the running back room and you could look at the offensive line and you could look at the DBs, you could look at the linebackers, and you could go, if we could find this exact prototype of a guy, that would complete that room, right? I think you have all of those pieces in the receiving room. I don't think there's a style of receiver that they don't have.
We'll be back soon with another position breakdown. Until then, go Big Red.